Hello and welcome back to another One More Glass of Wine episode, Waterford Estates' fantastic podcast. I'm Jeremy Maskell, your host, and today I'm really excited about this episode. We are joined by Jean-Vincent Ridon, the best sommelier in South Africa. We're in brilliant company today. I must admit I'm sweating a little bit presenting someone.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a really busy man. I can imagine you wear many hats being in your role. So just dive into us a little bit, what you do, where you came from. How did you land up in the South African wine industry?
I'm landed in 1996. That was my first harvest. I came as a winemaker here. I was furthermore working for banks, so we did a lot of the investments of foreign investors in the country then, when it was like the revolution. I'm a born free, like I said. So it was everything had to be rebuilt or redone. That was very exciting. And but I started first at a sommelier in France at my dad's restaurant. Never work for your family. It's underpaid. It's overworked. But I grew up with a passion of wine. I made wine in France. I made wine in Turkey. I made wine in California. I got more than 50 harvests under my belt. So I'm not that old, but I was making a few harvests a year. And in 2016, I started the Sommelier Academy, going back to my roots of sommelier, because South Africa is full of great winemakers, great chefs, but service sucks. Forgive my French.
For sure.
and there's a lot to be done on that side. And as a side involvement in the wine industry, I'm the coach of Team South Africa of blind wine tasting.
No ways.
So I bring them to the World Championship. We just come back from Bordeaux. So it's very interesting to compare the best Médoc with the best wines from Waterford.
Oh, okay. Well, what an amazing opportunity. And you say blind tasting. Is that your coaching?
Yeah, it's blind tasting is a world championship. 39 countries entered this year. We didn't do great, but we were here. It's like the Olympics. Important is to participate.
Of course.
It's by team, so it's a team of 4, and I'm not part of the team. I'm the coach, so I don't taste the wine. And you have to identify the country, the cultivar, the origin, the region, and the vintage of wine that can come from anywhere, from Lebanon to Niagara Falls to Australia or Stellenbosch.
Jeez. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, and I'm so glad. Today I've prepared a bit of a blind tasting for you. I didn't even know that you were our coach. So maybe you could coach me a little bit, teach me something.
That's a school of humility, so you can slap me after that.
They always say there's nothing that'll humble you quite like a blind tasting. You think you know what you're talking about until you don't have an idea of what.
That's when you know you don't know.
That's when you know you don't know. Oh, for sure. So, JV, tell me, best sommelier in the country. How does that accreditation work? How does the competition go about?
It's a competition that goes every 2 years. It's organized by the South African Sommelier Association. It started the first time in 2016. Gareth Ferreira was the first winner. I finished second.
Congratulations.
Then it was Joe Wiesel in 18, and I finished second. And then there was Vikus from Marble in Johannesburg.
Oh, yes.
And I finished second. So I think maybe out of candidate.
coming.
Last year I won the title.
Congrats.
And it's extremely exciting, but shows that even at my age, you have to persevere and work hard, and eventually it pays.
Of course, yeah. You have to put in the time sometimes to really master the craft. And this is a craft of many things to master. Walk us through, what does a sommelier entail? What do you have to do normally in your day-to-day?
Sommelier is a funny word, because when I arrived in the country, nobody knew the word in South Africa. It was like an unknown. It's very French, but sommelier is in charge of beverages for any establishment where it's served. So it encompasses things like restaurant, hotels, but as well wineries, and the chef being in charge of the food. We're in charge of whatever we drink, so we make half of the bill eventually.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And so every day I'm mostly on consulting. I'm not attached to a specific restaurant, but training the staff, upskilling them, so the experience is great for the client, and finding food pairing. So it's not only about the chef and believing in an artist, it's overall experience we offer the client. And for that, whatever we serve them, to the client, not to the chef. I mean, to the chef sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
But to the client, it's very important in how they remember the place. They don't come to feed themselves. They come to feel South Africa, feel Cape Town, Stellenbosch, and go back with wonderful memories. So we're part of it, and that's what sommelier do. Tasting wines, buying wine, but selling wine, and making sure it's relevant and it's tells enough story to our clients to be excited.
For sure. You act almost as a link between chef and client and a wine farm and client. So
Yes.
you have to have a great understanding not only of the wine industry, but the food industry and the history and the stories behind whichever wines you are putting on the list.
It's extremely important to see that as an overall experience and not just the wine. Nobody cares about the wine. They come to a restaurant. It's not like a wine geek contest. It's a pleasure. It's supposed to be passion sharing. It's supposed to be pleasure. And nobody wants to hear about malolactic fermentation, aging on the lees, or the pH of the wine.
The geeky
They don't
stuff.
want to be told about the wine, but they want the wine to overwhelm them. And that's how they will remember the wine. That's how we create iconic wines, yes.
For sure, yeah. And speaking about wine, I saw you had a sip of that a little bit earlier when we
Yes.
poured it in the glass. So today we are drinking the 2018 Waterford Estate Cabernet Sauvignon. So something that's always quite dear to our heart, and I thought quite fitting for us to drink with a man of your stature in the industry. I'd love to get your take on the wine. Waterford, when it comes to Estate Cabernet Sauvignon, it's our calling card. It's what we do best. Most people will know this wine. They also know of our Shiraz. Red wine generally on the Helderberg Mountain is far easier for us to grow at an amazing quality and make amazing wines that tell those stories that you're talking about. How do you find this 2018 vintage?
2018 was good, very exciting vintage. But I think what we look at is the pure essence of what Stellenbosch does best, which is Cabernet Sauvignon. And it took time to understand and accept that we might be more monocultivar than we thought we were in the industry. When I travel the world and I have the chance to taste great Cabernet from California, great Cabernets from France, from Italy, or for any upcoming region in the world, I'm always surprised how Stellenbosch has this unique balance that is so difficult to achieve on Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon can be easily unripe or too heavy or completely imbalanced or muscular or monstrous sometimes.
For sure.
I'm not even sure if it's an English word, but I'm sure you understand what I'm
yes,
talking
yeah.
about. And I find that Stellenbosch has the balance and now can compete with the top of California at a fraction of the price
Right.
when you
That
compare
does
quality
help
to
us,
quality.
yes.
And we had the chance with Team South Africa to just been recently in the Medoc, which is the homeland of Cabernet Sauvignon. It kind of been designed to be planted on a warmer climate of the Medoc by crossing Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc a long time ago. And when we just talk to the client, we're not here to talk in length about the wine, but to focus on the power of the tannins, in the beauty of the black fruit. But still, there's still a lot of red little fruits, and I can feel touch of cranberry, of pomegranate, and orange skin on that, like this blood orange skin. But the length on the palate shows the race of the wine and its elegance and its ability to not be a wine. I mean, you could drink it, but I'm French, so for me, we never drink outside meals. We just have very long meals.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
and a wine like that with its texture and its length and its lingering persistence on the palate is what you need for food pairing. You don't want a wine that just up from fruit and collapse. And I think 18, also it start to maybe go into a more discrete phase before it start exploring another world of secondary and tertiary aromatics. We are now at a stage where the wine is just beautiful. It's settled from the bottling and from the winemaking. It's not this young wild animal anymore. But on the wine list, you know, the power of the tannins of the Cabernet Sauvignon usually are aimed at very fatty food, and that's a French product. We eat a lot and we drink a lot, and it must be very fat
Yes,
because we
yeah,
have
for
great
sure. Lots
tannins.
of
But
flavor.
But it's so delicate and polished. You can see we are in the barrel cellar, and the reason why the tannins are so polished and elegant is probably because of the money that has been put in these beautiful barrels.
That's for sure. Yes. Yeah.
And it means it broadens the spectrum of food pairing into something that can go to leaner meats like games or South Africa is a beef fillet
For sure. We're a
lover
big red
country.
meat.
And Cabernet Sauvignon is more for the fatty or juicy, long fiber meat. But for beef fillet, a Cabernet that is so luscious and voluptuous is exactly what you need, yes.
For sure, yeah. If I'm honest with you, I could listen to you speak about wine all day long. That was a journey, and I can see why the sommelier in you is such an important link between the wine and the customer, explaining to people the history, where it comes from, and how it is explored in South Africa.
Wine has a sense of place, and also in modern winemaking, we all know how to make technical wine that lose that identity in exchange of a easy accessibility. I think we're wrong, and that's maybe why we are losing the new generation, because we refuse to tell stories very often, and stories that people can relate to. While Cabernet Sauvignon from Stellenbosch, and specifically the Waterford Estate, there's a story here. There's a reason why Cabernet has been planting, and that's proven now for decades. And from the oldest Cabernet we can drink from the 70s, I had the chance to recork very old vintage with the Amorim Clinic, and I realized that our old Cabernets, from the legendary 66 we talk about to the more modern one, they are a statement of South African wine industry, and probably our best ambassador, what the Constance wine were in the 18th century or 19th century. Cabernet Sauvignon from Stellenbosch is our flagship these days. Sorry for people for Pinotage and other grapes, but I think that we are really now achieving a world-class status.
That is brilliant. And then Stellenbosch Cabernet, South African Cabernet, how does it differ to the international perspective? Let's talk maybe the Médoc that you mentioned earlier in France.
We always compare South Africa in general. It's between the old world and the new world, and that's exactly what we feel with the Cabernet from Stellenbosch. Is we are between the Médoc, slightly tighter, slightly more acid, slightly or fresher. It's a better word for sommelier than acid. But when I feel like I'm in a winery now, I talk more technical. But yeah, a fresher wine and wine that needs more time to evolve and deliver. I mean, a young Cabernet Sauvignon from the Médoc can be off-putting for a non-experienced palate, while the Californian ones are sometimes so luscious, so silky, that they are too much, too soft, too round, you lack these nerves that will make you, I want another glass.
Yeah, that tension.
Yes, that tension into the wine, yes.
Okay.
So I think South Africa, Stellenbosch, Cabernet Sauvignon is in between. It's a gravity center of what Cabernet should be. And if you have to give Cabernet from someone that got no clue about what Cabernet is from anywhere around the world and can afford the best, I would probably, that's the best entry door.
Entry point.
Into the world of Cabernet Sauvignon is Stellenbosch.
Yes, yeah. I think we find that a lot. We deal with a lot of international tourists here in our tasting room, and we put a lot of focus on that wine experience, training our staff to talk more story, like what you've been saying, and explaining the history and story of South African winemaking. I find a lot of people are blown away that South African wine, Cabernet in particular, the quality is so high, and the drinkability also lies there with ageability. And I think that does shock a lot of international travelers.
It's ageability as a French person, French-born, is the key. It's one of the key factors on the quality of the wine. It's we always use the metaphor, which can be shocking sometime in modern day, that it's like a woman with too much makeup. When the makeup is gone, you have the truth. I think with age, you have the truth. It's like the makeup of the young wine is quickly gone, and if the wine can benefit from aging in bottle, can become better in bottle, that shows the true quality of the wine. Yes.
And I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Okay.
Jerry,
I hope it's a Chateau Latour or something like that.
And get you to maybe, in my lovely wrapping here, do a bit of a blind tasting. I'm incredibly intrigued and excited to hear your process, the key things that you're looking out for that tells you what the wine is, maybe direct you in a vintage direction or cultivar.
Okay, that's a moment of, stay humble. So I can definitely declare it's a red wine.
Got to start somewhere.
Yes, I can see on the rim. It shows some evolution, not much, but probably some barreling in that wine, because it's not a solid block. It's very opaque. It's a dense wine. It's limiting the number of cultivars that can offer that color. It's slightly, there's no blue tones in the wine. That's either some age or fairly longer barrel maturation. Got a spicy on the nose, oak, but expensive one. You can see that suddenly we may be on the makeup, but it's more Dior and Chanel than Clicks.
Something a bit more up in
Yeah.
stature, yes, for sure.
And that gives a layer of a touch of vanilla, of toast, and some spices at the back, like a bit of cinnamon and even nutmeg. But that's evolved. Let me now. I'm sorry for the noise in the microphone.
Oh no, we've had many a wine slurp on the podcast. Don't you worry about that.
Um, that's a nice baby, yeah.
That's a stunning bottle of wine.
I mean, it's extremely fresh, and at the same time, it's extremely intense. So that shows it came on a climate of where the grapes don't struggle to mature, probably limiting the yield because it's got a intense intensity in the body. The power of the oak would first made me think of Italian, like Tuscany coast, this super Tuscan that's more on Cabernet with a touch of Merlot, a sort of Sangiovese. But there's a roundness, a sweetness in the ripe fruit that's pushing me away from Italy. It's too ripe for France, and it's definitely not right bank. If it's left bank, then we look at something very powerful like the north of the Medoc, like Saint-Estèphe. I mean, if you offered me a Chateau Lafite, I would be very happy today.
I'm sure that would be an absolute treat.
You can see the wine is young. I mean, it's evolved, but it still has so much of its infancy. If we look at, I guess now that we might be in South Africa, but maybe we're actually in come with an Australian or Rhone something. Maybe I'm completely on the wrong cultivar. But you have really this black currant on the palate and a touch of brumbleberries and blackberries, but very cassis and the tannin. So I'm not sure we're pure Cabernet here. There's a silkiness, this plummy finish and touch of sherry that might aim at a blend more than anything. And if we're local, it looks like a very healthy but not too hot vintage, maybe 17 would be a call. But some 2021 tend to be extremely generous, but aging a bit fast sometime on the aromatic profile. So I don't know actually, but it's a beautiful wine. I mean, as a sommelier, I would start to serve that wine, but I would not mind keeping some in the cellar for 5 to more. I mean, if my financial manager allows that.
Allows you to do so, for sure.
But that's what people want. They want to get the wine where it's getting with time broader. When a young wine like that, when it's just bottled, might be a bit tight and austere. Here it starts to broaden its shoulder, and the mouthfeel is incredible. Honestly, I don't know. I can feel the cab. I can feel maybe a touch of Merlot into it. Expensive wine, beautiful, crafted. I don't know.
To drag you away and to maybe drag out this experience before I do the big reveal. If you were to pour this with the pairing, what would you maybe call would be the ideal dish?
To combine with, I mean, tannins are intense, but they completely enveloped. However, there's strawberry flavors coming at the back now. I would go into, when the wine is great, the dish has to be simple. That's general, and you need some fattiness, but you need some juiciness too. I will go on a classic roast of lamb, just not the leg that might be too fat, but the shoulder, just in the oven with rosemary and thyme, rub with olive oil, and maybe just a touch of tapenade, which is this black olives, that just to
Saltiness
massage
as
before
well.
you put into the oven. And please don't cook it too much. It must be pink when you cut,
Tender as well.
and slightly, then you get the juiciness in it. I think that's what I would go with it.
You've got my mouth
Yeah,
drooling here.
me too. Me
Jean-Vincent.
too. I'm self-motivating myself now.
Maybe a leg of lamb is on the cards for dinner
Yes.
tonight. Yes. So to do the reveal, firstly, that was brilliant to watch. I can
Okay.
see you're a man who's incredibly well versed in the world of wine. You are truly a master of your craft, so it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast here. As us,
Yeah, wait until I see the bottle, then then you can give me some more.
then we will. I mean, I do like to drag out the suspense just a little
And
bit.
that's a beautiful pinotage from.
Devonville Hills Pinotage. No, I'm joking with you. I had to bring something a bit close to home. Waterford Estate, the Gem, 2017. So you did the vintage some justice there.
That's such a beautiful vintage. I mean, if I
stunning
can still
vintage.
buy some wine, I would, because this wine can, I hope not survive me, but I can enjoy it in a long time
In a
from
good
now.
long
Yeah.
haul. This was released 2 weeks ago. This is our current vintage.
Are you just releasing the
We are
17
just
now?
releasing the 17.
Lucky clients you are.
I know. We are really blessed. We had an amazing launch where we tasted the 2004, 2005, 2006, 2012, 2014, and 15 vintages. So it was brilliant to reach back into the history of the wine, discuss and understand where the wine came from, how we've learned to understand blending with 8 cultivars. That is,
You got 8 cultivars in
8
the jam.
cultivars in the
I
jam.
sound like an ignorant. I apologize. I should have been
No.
reading before.
No, absolutely not. Please, it was. I feel bad now that I may have put you too much on the spot. It is always a tough task, and this is a tough wine to note. But I couldn't have done it any better justice than what you did in the way you tasted it.
So what are the cultivars? Because this strawberry flavor that's coming, and it's not a cooked strawberry, it's very fresh, that's coming on a rich olfaction. I don't know where to put that. That Malbec based? What?
Well, so to call back to the descriptors and where you were crossing off the regions that you were doing in your mind, which shows that you're an incredibly versed man in international wines. It is 45% or around 45% Cabernet Sauvignon. No vintage is the same, but we stick to a general recipe. 20% Shiraz. Then there's Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Sangiovese, Barbera, and Mourvedre. So we have Italian, Spanish, and French in there. It is a confusing wine to drink.
I would definitely not go on the full listing. On the texture of the tannins, I can feel why there's this slight dryness, very elegant lace, like come probably from Cab Franc, and you can find in Mourvedre too. It's slightly herby, and that's why probably the roast of lamb will go so well with dried herbs on it. But it's so integrated. It's, it's a chance to be able to only release the wine when the wine is ready. In modern days, try to find any CFO that will say, yes, you're right, let's keep that
Hold it
for
back.
now 7 years and wait until we run out of money that we can release it. It's
For sure.
and because restaurants I consult with, none of them have proper space to store the wine. Very few, unfortunately, have a policy to buy and keep. Clients have to face wines which are not ready. As much as the sommelier, we're here to aerate the wine in a carafe and try to pretend that with a bigger glass it will start breathing. But it's always the last sip that's the best one.
Oh, yes.
And when we open the next bottle, we have to start again the cycle. So yeah, that's I think for consumers, it's wonderful to be able to find wines that are not just rushed into bottling and shocked. And it's a beautiful wine. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And I mean, when I say it, it was an absolute treat to sit and listen to you knock off, is this Italian? You did, my ears pricked up when you were talking Super Tuscan, because there is a little influence of the Super Tuscan's blend in the wine, but I don't feel you find many places, wineries in the world that are blending with 8 cultivars. I know there's a couple in
But Italian, you never know, you know.
There could be a little bit of something extra in there for sure.
Can be a lot of many things they don't say, but yeah.
Yeah, so, and also, I mean, the exciting opportunity that we have here on the farm, this is all estate-grown varieties. There's 11 red cultivars, grown here at Waterford Estate, and we have the privilege to work with what grows best in the vintage. So I think our winemakers always have their work cut out for them when blending the next vintage, but I think it's always an exciting choice and opportunity that our winemakers look forward to each vintage, where we do our blending and decide what's going to go into the next vintage.
I mean, it's a big legacy to live with, because the gem has always been kind of a reference. That's for me when I started to make wine in 96 and then had my own winery, but consulting for others, everybody looked at Waterford like, what the hell are they trying to do, aiming at the iconic level from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. We all knew that the terroir around here was definitely one of the best in the world, so that was not a doubt. But turning a terroir, a potential, into a success is what we all dream about as winemakers, and it's far from a given. It's I can see the evolution in style. It's slightly, maybe because it's released a bit later now, a bit more tame than it was many years ago. But the integration of the barrel aging is so mastered. It's that's a great example of what South Africa can produce. And he has to go back to Italy. Yeah, the fruit is riper. It's slightly more generous. You don't feel any overripeness at all. It's just purity of the fruit. But we are in the sun of Africa, and yes, it was not Tuscany.
Yes, I think we've recently had the opportunity to listen to Luvo, Sommelier at One and Only.
Magic Luvo.
He's got a way with words, that man. And when he was talking about the sun, the South African sun, exactly like what you're talking about, it's nowhere else in the world that has that intensity that can give us such fruit but complexity and not just burn the grape skins. Our soils are so diverse and different. And I think that's a big strength in South African wine, is that diversity and ability to showcase South Africa.
It's a true strength. And yes, you can find sometime in Argentina, the altitude and the latitude makes the same of intensity, but with altitude that we don't have, but the huge advantage that we're having is the proximity of the ocean from Stellenboschberg, from Helderberg, having this proximity on Falls Bay, that's changing everything and allows Cabernet to give its best, and Merlot too. And God knows our Merlot doesn't handle the heat well, and there's very few spots where you can play with that grape in South Africa, and that's one of them, yes.
For sure. So bringing it slightly back now, I would love to ask you, for aspiring sommeliers, people moving into your sphere of work, do you have any advice for someone up and coming?
It's
not to give away your secrets.
No, there's no secret. It's I'm teaching a lot, and I'm kind of paid to inspire them. Mm-hmm. So I think becoming a sommelier then must keep in mind that we are here to make people happy. It's not just about wine. Wine is one of the tools that we use to make people happy, and it's like magic recipes. You need to have all the ingredients, and even if it's sometimes the most visible part of the job, they need to enjoy the wine in its true element, which is for Latin people like I am, is get food and wine. They're made to go together. And in the sense, sometimes we lose a new generation because we tried for long to look as wine as a social drink. It's not. It's a social meal partner. That's what makes a meal a wonderful moment to share with friends. Drinking wine on its own can be a bit sad because you don't have the story, not the same memories.
For sure.
And wine's purpose is to be food, and not food for the soul, but food for the body too. And I taste, travel, listen. When I started be a sommelier, and there was no internet, we had books that were outdated. I had no access to anything outside the region I was growing up. Now things have changed, so every one of us is global. And on this podcast, I don't know who's going to see me in other part of the world, but people will learn about the Cabernet of Stellenbosch through that, something that was not available 15 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So And if you have the chance, travel, talk to people, listen to what people want. We tend to forget when you young sommelier, you are all arrogant. Now I'm just arrogant and older. We need to listen to the client. We're here to make them happy. We're not here to tell them our story. We need to listen to what story they want to be told. And when you like that, you become like the shrink of the table. That's when you realize you're a good sommelier.
Brilliant. Well, JV, thank you so much for taking the time
It's
out of
been
your
my-
very busy day, coming and joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm sure our listeners will.
Can I have a bit more of that
Oh,
wine?
with pleasure. You don't have to ask me twice. When it comes to the gem,
No,
it is a
that's-
wine I do not mind sharing. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Okay.
So
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for sharing this wine. I mean, I knew the Cab 18, so I had that chance. But I advise anyone who doesn't know to explore the world of Cabernet Sauvignon from Stellenbosch, using that as a beacon of light. And yes, for special occasion, or if you have a good cellar under your house or a place where you can store the wine, I mean, the gem will be very rewarding. It's already giving a lot, but yeah, thanks for sharing with me. It's a great moment.
thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure.